Save the Semantics, episode 191. It is November 6th, 2022. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. We are. Excuse me, my God. I'm all burpy right now. Just had lunch. That's why. We're about a month in to the NBA season. Oh yeah, I forgot this is the premier NBA podcast where we discuss all things basketball, analytics, your favorite players. We do everything. Definitely not lying about any of that. It is completely factual. Um, we're about a month into the NBA season. I'd say a good amount of things to talk about. Some trajectories on some teams, some players, how I'm feeling as a fan of a specific team, as well as a fan of the NBA in general, of this season so far in general. So yeah, a good amount of stuff to talk about. As for me, I'm doing all right. Oh yeah, I wanted to. I have some catch up to do. I have some catch up to do in regards to other things that I have wanted to talk about, but just haven't because I just haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, Halloween was last weekend. Well, Halloween was on a Monday, but I was able to celebrate it on the weekend beforehand, and it was a good time. It was the first time in a long time where I actually dressed up. I don't even remember the last time I did that was probably high school. So I had a lot of fun doing that. I'm usually not the biggest costume or even the biggest like Halloween guy, but I don't know, it's fun to put in a little bit of effort and do some stuff that you're not, that I'm not conventionally doing on like a regular basis, right? Or really ever. So I thought that was fun. I dressed up as a K-pop star. My idea was that I was trying to be uh, Lisa from Blackpink. I was kind of like scavenging around for some ideas. I went on Reddit. I was like, hey, what's a good fit? And then I was able to find a decent look. Pretty straightforward. Just like, black hair, like kind of like a suit, slacks. I think the hair was really kind of what sold it though. So I thought it was solid. I thought I did a decent job. I don't know if I'll ever for Halloween. I don't know if I'll ever like go all out, makeup, everything like that. Um, but I don't know. It was fun. It's something that I wouldn't mind doing. Like kind of continuing to do that is just kind of it's. I think it's worth the effort. Um, just to try things out. Um, Last time, was it last time or was it the week before? See, I'm losing track of things. I wanted to briefly talk about Decision to Leave, because I remember bringing that up. Um, I saw it. It's been like a couple weeks now since I saw it. Um, I thought, and the funny thing is, like, the movie is also showing kind of nearby to where I am, so I have the opportunity to watch it again, honestly, for that. But I don't know. We'll see. I'll see if I'm gonna do that. Um, I really enjoyed it. I think there's a lot of things to really appreciate about the movie. I mentioned it before. The cinematography is beautiful. I think that's like the biggest thing that kind of drew me into this one. Um, I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of the style with Old Boy, I feel like, and Old Boy is, one of my favorite movies. Um, there's moments where like the things in the scene are kind of just like stops, and they're not they're brief. They don't happen all the time, but I feel when they have like the entire like time just kind of comes to like a still. I feel like they did that a couple of times in this movie, kind of similar to Old Boy, to like emphasize certain things. Like it's meant to like, hey, you should pay a little more attention to what's going on in this scene in particular. Um, and I thought that was really interesting and well done. I'm still like hung up on the story. I'm kind of like thinking about it in terms of like what exactly happened. A lot of things are sort of you sort of have to uh you sort of have to kind of dig into it a little bit yourself. It's sort of left uncovered, which I like. I think you should sometimes, as a viewer, you shouldn't be told about everything that happens, and I think you should. Sometimes things are kind of left to your own interpretation, especially like kind of the ending and stuff. I don't want to give things away, but the ending is kind of leaves you hanging a little bit, and you have to sort of like think about like, okay, what are the possibilities here, and how what's sort of my interpretation of what happened exactly. So I like that. I like that kind of the ambiguity of it. It's not really super clear. Things don't come to this sort of like natural conclusion like it does in another one of Park Chan Wook's movies, The Handmaiden, which I saw recently. Um, I think that movie felt it was a very cohesive storyline. You're like, okay, this happened, and then there was like a very conclusive ending to that. And in this one, it's kind of again, it's sort of like a undetermined ending, sort of kind of leaving it open. So I think there's value in both, in terms of like the narrative and how it's structured and how you feel about it. Like, do you prefer to have a conclusive ending where you like things are wrapped up and there's not really any loose ends, or do you prefer to have it where it's kind of like, okay, there's you're still kind of like thinking about it, where it's not everything is again, not everything has kind of concluded, so you have to sort of think about things, and you're still unsure like I am. I'm still unsure about what actually happened, and I think that's sort of the way it is. Like I still don't know for certain if if what happened, or if we kind of have sort of like an unreliable narrator sort of, where we aren't completely sure if we can take everything he experiences or his viewpoint as completely factual, right? I think some things are a bit glossed over, or he refuses to look at things deeper because he has this affection for the woman in the movie. So he gets kind of this blurred sense perception of things. And I think another thing to kind of note with Decision to Leave is the pacing of the movie. It's for a movie that is sort of this detective thriller of sorts, it is kind of like breakneck. It goes at this like breakneck speed, which is kind of wild because we're just going from scene to scene to scene, and there's just like no like it doesn't really give you a lot of time to breathe, which is really interesting. I think I feel when it comes to these like crime thrillers of like a similar vein, or like a murder mystery, I don't know. There are scenes that are a little more slower paced, but this one it just keeps going, and you're like, fuck. I feel like I missed something there. I feel like I missed a line or something significant. So that's kind of why I do want to go back to rewatch it, whether it comes on streaming or if if I have the time or kind of willingness to go watch it again in theaters, which again I'm like partially, I don't know, I'm partially considering, just because I think it might be worthwhile. So yeah, I don't know, I don't have too much else to discuss with this movie. I just think it was incredibly well done. Um, it's this and then Everything Everywhere All at Once are my like two favorite movies that I've seen. Again, I haven't seen that many movies in like theaters. Really, there's like three. So, like, I'd say 2 out of 3 movies that I've seen this year have been really good. So I'm happy with my movie going, my theater going experience for this year. Um, Actually, I was gonna say, last weekend, was it last weekend? I'm losing track of time. Yeah, last weekend, I watched uh, this movie called Tar, starring Kate Blanchett. Um, when I watched it, I was like, I went into the movie thinking that it was going to be this like autobiography or like a biopic of this famous composer. So I thought that everything that happened in the movie was based on real events, and some things were off, and then I was like, okay, so some of these were things were kind of given like, some artistic liberty, some events were a little bit more dramatized, but no, it's not based on a real person at all. I completely bought into it. I was like, what the fuck? So after I saw the movie, I looked it up. I was like, no, this is not based on a real person, which is wild. I was sold. I'm like, this is like a biopic. This is like a fascinating person. I want to know more about this, more about her and kind of her, her background. And I want to hear like some of her compositions. But no, she's not real. She's not a real person, which is like kind of crazy. I don't know. I feel like they duped me. I thought it was a really interesting movie. I think it's funny because I went, I went from Decision to Leave, which I mentioned the pace and how fast paced I felt that movie was. And then this movie, which is much, much slower paced. You kind of sit with like a lot of single shots on these uh, actors, the actors like having the conversation and dialogue, which I feel the writing in this movie, it was really, really well done. It's super detailed. Like the conversations they have, there's so many intricacies to it. I think it's like it was I really had to like pay attention to like what they were talking about because I felt like I was like getting lost. Like if I missed like a line or two, I would have been lost. And I felt lost at certain times. Like I had no idea. They were referring to different like composers and stuff like that. I think ultimately that's not, you know, I think having some musical background, some knowledge about the composers that they were referencing probably helped. Like I think I don't know, some composer, some music nerd would probably have have a great time watching this movie because they would like pick up like, oh, that's like, Tchaikovsky or whatever the fuck. But I think that's like kind of secondary to what the movie is actually about, which is about this like woman who is incredibly flawed. She's like a genius. She's what's the word? She's kind of a what is the word? Kind of a savant, but she's very flawed. She has kind of she's a little off-putting. She doesn't really read the room very well. A lot of the relationships that she's kind of built up over time are superficial in the sense that she's kind of has, I mean, this kind of is sort of much more like clarified on later on in the movie, but they're built up based on, her want to continue to rise in kind of the composer world. Like all of her relationships are just kind of, they're there for her own benefit in her career, I guess you could say. Like they don't seem, if she has like her pleasantries and whatnot. Like she seems, surface value, surface level. She she kind of maintains these relationships in order to just kind of maintain her position in that kind of world, which I thought was really interesting. Like a lot of, she was talking to like an older composer, a retired composer, and stuff like that, and I felt that was really interesting. That relationship felt a little more genuine than the other ones, where she was like, she had like the friend composer, but that friend was kind of using her in order to craft his own work. The relationship she had with her wife was, and this is kind of revealed later on, I guess kind of a spoiler, but like I mean, she's like sort of like the first like cellist in like the orchestra. So there's kind of like a nepotism thing right there. So you could argue that people were using her as much as she was like using them in order to kind of like build up their careers and whatnot. And there was this really like stylistically, a really interesting thing is just how it sort of portrays anxiety, I guess you could say. There are moments where she's running. She goes for a run in the park and she hears like screaming or something and she runs towards it, but it never gets resolved. Like a lot of these things, certain sounds, certain tics, OCD, I guess it could be OCD, anxiety, whatever you want to call it. It's not really, they don't really discuss that. It's sort of implied, but she hears or sees certain things that just kind of bother her, and she just has to like investigate these things, but those things are never really solved, right? Like you're like, why is this thing ticking? Did their child like mess around with something and whatnot? Yeah, these things are just never resolved. So she's sort of like left like, uh, you know, these things are kind of inconclusive. So she's kind of just like running around, just like stressed out and shit. So, really interesting movie. I was really confused on the ending of it. I was just like, what that was a fucking wild ending. Like it felt like it came out of nowhere. But then I read some discussions online, and it kind of made a little more sense in terms of where the movie ended up and where her character ended up. I can kind of see where it comes from, but it was still very, it was a very abrupt ending for sure. It just it felt as though it came out of nowhere, but it sort of was building up to that point. So it makes sense once you kind of step back and kind of analyze the whole thing. But yeah, interesting movie. I don't know if I would really recommend it if you have the patience for a slow. It's a pretty slow movie, I think. Very dialogue heavy for sure. But if you like character pieces, Cate Blanchett she's fucking awesome in this. She's such a good actor. I would highly recommend it to people that sort of can kind of or have the patience to sit through these kinds of movies. But I understand if it's, it is pretty slow paced at times. So I don't know if I would really recommend it to everyone, but if you are interested in character pieces and really good acting, this is a solid movie. I think it's a really solid movie. Anyways, let's talk some basketball. I've been rambling on about movies for a little while, but I wanted to catch up on some things. All right, let's just get this out of the way. The Warriors are 3-7 right now. They suck. They're not. they're not. They are not good. They are currently on. Is it a 4-game losing streak? I think 4 or 5. I think it's 4 or 5 game losing streak. They have lost against the Heat, the Pistons, the Hornets, And then the Magic. Hold on, let me see. Let me count. Let me count this shit. The Heat, the Pistons, the Hornets, the Magic, and the Pelicans. This is a 5-game losing streak. Jesus Christ. So yeah, pretty bad. They don't look good. I think other there's a lot of other people that have done a good job in terms of analyzing why they're playing so poorly. I think the most obvious thing is the starters versus the bench. The starters look good. The starters are one of the best in the league, but our bench is pretty rough right now. I think we don't really have any veterans on the bench. I think that's like huge. We lost Gary Payton. We lost Otto Porter. Bielitsa, who was, he wasn't a huge factor, but he still was a factor, especially earlier on. I felt he did a really good job of kind of like getting into the system. I don't remember if he played a ton during the playoffs, but he was, I felt he was solid, especially toward the beginning of last year. I think he did a decent job. So we have no veteran presence on the bench. So it's kind of rough right now. It would have been nice if we could have signed at least one of the veterans to our team, but it is what it is. We want a ring. So I'm not unhappy about that. But right now it's not a great. We're not looking good at all, really. So I think there are a lot of things to work on. I think they can make those improvements as the season goes forward. It's just that our bench, the veteran, I guess, for the bench is Poole, and I guess Jermichael Green, but Green has been really bad. I feel like when I've seen, when I see him play in stints, he always is like getting into foul trouble. I'm like, dude, like I just stop fouling, please. Like it's always a foul. Like every time I see him. So that's been kind of disappointing. And yeah, so Poole is, he was supposed to be the guy that was kind of going to carry the second unit and whatnot, but he hasn't been playing all that well. I think everyone's been kind of shitting on Wiseman, because I mean, look, I get it. The numbers back it up. He's been like a net negative for the Warriors in terms of his play and his contributions, but I just like I don't want to continue to dogpile on the dude, because like, first of all, he didn't play at all last year. It's an entire season where he hasn't played, so it's like I don't know what people expect to see. Like, do they just expect kind of like a plug and play kind of thing, Of course, of course, a lot of it does come down to how much effort he puts in, and sort of his IQ and whatnot. But again, he hasn't played at all, really. He's barely played. He's taken essentially a year off to recover from his injury, and also I think, he just needs to. I don't know. I just think it's gonna take some time. You know what I mean? If he wasn't on the Warriors, if he was on some other team that was developing, right, like the Magic or something like that, I think people would give kind of the benefit of the doubt to him. I feel like, you know what I mean? I don't think they would be so harsh, but because it's the Warriors, I think people have this expectation because he's playing with Steph. And so things are kind of like multiplied in terms of how much pressure they're putting on him. But I don't know. I just, if I don't know, halfway through the season, he doesn't show it. If he continues to kind of play like this, then okay, I think it's fair to give our criticisms. I mean, it's fair to give our criticisms now too. I think people might be a little harsh on him. That's all I'm saying. Just considering the context of everything. He hasn't played at all. So I just think I think I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt at this point, especially considering how early it is in the season. So, but yeah, I think, the bench is like a big thing. Our defense is not good. And that's because we let go. One of the reasons is because we let go a lot of those veterans who had like a defensive presence and everything. So I think, there's a lot of things to improve on, but I have an open mind. I don't know if this season they are going to be as good as they were last year. And also last year they had an incredible start. They were like 11-1 or something like that. So we had kind of, our play, the record kind of backed up our position and where we eventually ended up for the playoffs, and then, in the finals and winning the championship and everything like that. So I think that kind of all contributed to that, but this year is a little different. But yeah, again, I'm going to keep my expectations at a reasonable position and not like panic like a lot of other people. I've been through it. I've been through what this team has been before. I think and I'll say it again, we are an incredibly spoiled franchise. We have experienced so much success over the past decade. I just think you just have to have healthy you have to have a healthy outlook on shit. Just consider all these other teams that have not won a championship, that haven't been in the playoffs for forever. I just think it's just, just we are shitty right now. Like that's true. And it's fair to criticize those things, but to just be like panic, like fire Kerr, blow this shit up into the sun. Relax, all right. You haven't been here. The experience. Be a little humbled. You know what I mean? It's you go through rough patches, man. Shit happens. You know what I mean? That's what you get when, like, every team, like, I don't know, with the exception of maybe maybe the Heat during 2011 through 2014, most teams experience the lows, you know what I mean? Like they don't just get good like that, you know what I mean? I don't know, it's just like you're going to go through growing pains in some cases, and this is kind of one of them. So that's that. What else do I want to talk about? The Bucks are 9-0. They look good. They're going to be that's going to be a tough team to beat. Regardless of, what conference you're in. So I think they're good. They're the last undefeated team. Giannis is playing out of his mind. What a surprise. So not much else to say on that end. In terms of development, what was I talking about? Surprise starts. Jazz look good. Spurs are kind of starting to level out a little bit, but they still have gotten some quality wins. And what else? The Cavs look really good. I watched the game on, was it Thursday or Wednesday against the Celtics, and that was a banger of a game. That was an incredible game. I'm glad that I caught it kind of late, fourth quarter, overtime. Great stuff. That's basketball shit right there. When they were playing like hard defense, when Donovan Mitchell was he was playing out of his mind, and not just on the offensive end where he was hitting literally everything. I saw him on the defensive end, taking on Tatum and Brown and stuff, and he was doing it he was going at it, man. He was being super physical. I just considering, he's 6'1", but he held his own and he looked really good out there defensively. So, excited to kind of see where the Cavs are going. They have a pretty. I like their team. They have a lot of really like likable players. I think it looks like they have like a solid like chemistry going on. Yeah, they look like a fun team to watch, and they could be a potential, you know, contender in the going into the playoffs. So, gonna keep an eye out for them. Um, I've watched. I didn't. I actually didn't watch this. I saw the later on. I saw the Blazers versus the Suns where Jeremy Grant hit a game winner. um, I was trying to watch, like a lot of people, especially Suns fans, were like calling that game winner a travel, which is like, okay, I could see that. I don't really know. I feel like they've gotten pretty. They've gotten a little harder on traveling and carrying, actually calling them, which is really interesting. I don't know how to feel about that game. It's a game winner, man. I mean, it was a he got it. They didn't call anything. He got it in before the shot clock, the buzzer went off. So, I don't know. It was cool. It's okay. It's okay if they didn't really call a travel on that, even though he shuffled his feet. He was just walking on air, man. It was crazy, but whatever. It was all right. Yesterday I watched it was a wild game to tune into. It's like who a non-fan, I'm not really a Kings fan. I'm cheering for the Kings just because I want to see them succeed. I don't really care that much for the Magic, even though they have, Banchero and they seem, to have a young, exciting team. But I was just like, I'm not a fan of either team really. So tuning into that is pretty wild, but I'm glad I did because it was a good game. It went kind of crazy. Went into overtime. The Kings like almost blew it. Like they could have it could have been an incredibly embarrassing loss for them. Like they threw it away at the last second. They were up by like 4 with like 20 seconds or something like that. They foul. I think it was Suggs hit the 2 free throws, and then when they went to inbound it, Malik Monk like threw it away, and then they got 2 points and tied the game, which was kind of crazy. And then after that, De'Aaron Fox just strolled up court and then hit a logo buzzer beating 3. So I'm glad I watched that. I'm glad I tuned into that. I was like, oh shit. Sometimes you get lucky and you catch just like a random, just fucking great game. Probably not great for the both teams really. I know Kings fans were like, yeah, that was just like that was the most Kings way to like end the game. And I'm sure Magic fans were disappointed in blowing the lead and whatnot. But hey, man, that was exciting. As a non fan, as just a outsider looking in, that was a great time. I really enjoyed it. So, I'll see if I want to catch a game today. So Cavs, Lakers are playing right now. Wizards, Grizzlies, Bulls, Raptors, Jazz, Clippers. I'm thinking of maybe watching the Bulls game later because I haven't really watched them all too much. And the Raptors too. I like the Raptors. So something to, I don't know, something to kind of look forward to today. And what else? I didn't talk too much in regards to every single like team or whatnot, but those are kind of the things that I wanted to touch upon, kind of specifics things, mostly kind of, talking about the Warriors and, seeing if they can maybe improve going forward. So hopefully they make some changes. Hopefully the bench improves. Hopefully Jordan Poole improves. He's been playing really bad. But yeah, we will see. Anyways, that is going to do it for this episode. This has been Save the Semantics. Signing off.